Hello, I'm Gunjan Handa and this is On Record with TAC, and today with us is Mr. Sujeet Kumar. He is a second-term sitting MP representing Odisha in the Rajya Sabha. He is also a practicing lawyer with the Supreme Court of India. Along with that, his list of things continue. He also is the convener for the All-Party Indian Parliamentary Forum for Tibet, along with a major member in IPAC, or Indian Parliamentary Alliance on China as we know it. This also brings us to our topic of discussion today, which is China's expansionism, its ideation of going global, and its impact on India, along with other South Asian and Southeast Asian neighbors that India has. Hi, sir. How are you today?
Hi, Gunjan. Thank you for having me. Just one correction. I used to be the convener of the All-Party Parliamentary Forum on Tibet. Because I resigned from Parliament last September, I also resigned from the forum, and then I got elected. But we now have a different convener.
Right. So you.
But I'm very intimately engaged with them.
Engaged with them.
Yes.
This is what I was coming to. That you're still engaged with them.
Very much.
Great. Then I will continue with my series of questions that I have lined up for today.
Of course.
Welcome to our channel, sir.
Thank you.
I would like to begin with something more close to home, and that is somewhere or the other connected to China and other neighboring nations. I want to begin with the unfortunate and very harrowing attack that we witnessed a couple days ago on 22nd of April, the Pahalgam terror attack. I want to understand that how has this changed our relationship with Pakistan, and should India take a more advanced stance, maybe towards maybe economically, maybe in security and other diplomatic areas as well, or should India stay at its defensive stand that it's taking as of now?
Well, it's extremely unfortunate, as you have rightly pointed out. 27 innocent citizens lost their life. We all know, and now it has also been proven with ample evidence that there is a Pakistan hand in it, and it's nothing new. This is the typical template that Pakistan uses to attack India, because it knows that it cannot win over India in a conventional warfare. And given the state of affairs in Pakistan, its economy, and the way TTP in Pakistan is bleeding the Pakistani security forces, given what's happening in Balochistan,
right,
given what's happening with CPEC, right, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, the Pakistani establishments had to do something to show to its own people that they matter. And look at the timing. When the Prime Minister is in Saudi Arabia, when the US Vice President is in India, it was the most opportune time Pakistan chose to internationalize the Kashmir issue. India has acted in a very mature way. I'm pretty sure that the Prime Minister and the entire establishment, the Indian establishment, is going to give a befitting reply to the cowardly and dastardly attack perpetrated by Pakistan. It will be very unconventional, trust me. Nothing that you or I would have anticipated
or have witnessed so far.
Yes. And India has took various routes: diplomatic, legal, military. India has reached out to almost all the major powers. Almost all the major powers have condemned this barbaric act except Canada. Canada is the only G7 country which has not condemned it, and you know why they have done so.
Of course.
Even some of the Islamic countries, UAE, Oman, Saudi, have condemned it, probably for the first time. That shows our growing ties with the Islamic world. Taliban has strongly condemned it, right, in Afghanistan, right? So that shows India's growing heft diplomatically and in the global order. India has taken many proactive steps, like the Indus Water Treaty has been cancelled, and then the Atari border has been closed down. All the Pakistani citizens in the country have been asked to leave within a deadline. The diplomatic staff has been reduced to a bare minimum. So these are steps which will definitely hurt Pakistan. But I think time has come to hit Pakistan where it hurts the most. And I will be very blunt, Gunjan, in saying that the Balochs are looking at India for
Towards
support and
India,
help.
yes.
I have no hesitation, even as a member of parliament, to say that we should support them in their fight for self-determination. Pakistan, we should go back the 1971 path.
So
we have to dismember Pakistan.
So are we looking at a more active war with Pakistan at this point? If not war, because it's again 21st century and war is a concept that comes very later on in the fight, even for Russia and Ukraine for that matter. All of these fights that have been going on are either internal and the international fights or cross-border fights that have been happening or wars that have been happening have come after a very long continual action otherwise, outside war as well. So I want to understand that, is war a possibility? Is India looking at a war, and can Pakistan afford a war for that matter?
Certainly not. But the Pakistani economy is in such a bad shape, such a pathetic state that they cannot sustain a war beyond a few days. A conventional war is unlikely. Having said, because Pakistan and India both are nuclear powers, and having said that, there are many ways we can hurt Pakistan economically, diplomatically. I have mentioned militarily as well. Similar to Balakot, a surgical strike, a very directed, pinpointed surgical strike. Indus water trade is certainly going to hurt them a lot. We have already seen 80% of the Indus water flows into Pakistan, and 80% of Pakistan's irrigation is dependent on Indus water. So the ramifications of this is going to be devastating for Pakistan. We can do a naval blockade of Karachi port. That will hurt them again. We have to find out the terrorists hiding in Pakistan and ensure that they are brought to justice by eliminating them or by other means. So there are various ways. Cotton. In fact, large cotton export of Pakistan comes to India. So if we stop that, a large part of Pakistani economy will suffer. So without a conventional warfare, there are various ways we can isolate Pakistan, we can punish Pakistan. China has already started supporting Pakistan. We have seen that in the diluted form of the UN Security Council resolution already. We have seen China didn't condemn Pakistan or name Pakistan. China condemned the attack. But has urged both the countries to exercise restraint, fully knowing that it is Pakistan which is provoking and has killed innocent lives. So it's not surprising, because China and Pakistan, they are all-weather friends, and they claim to be ironclad. The friendship is ironclad, and there's so much of investment of China in Pakistan, and it suits China whenever India and Pakistan equation or relationship is
strained in certain way,
then it suits Pakistan. It suits China.
Right.
And China, and basically Pakistan is a proxy of China. It's like a new colony of China. So China is trying to tie down India in the Western front, so that it can do its nefarious activities otherwise.
So about China's expansionism ideas, I will come back to that a little later in our interview, but I would like to talk about this Kashmir issue a little more. I want to understand, how is the parliament looking at this whole attack, and what are the insider things that are coming out? How are the ministers, how are all the parties for that matter reacting to this, and is there a political conundrum, or is there a political consensus on how India is going to react to it, or is this also being played in a very political manner where different parties stand differently?
By and large, there is an all-party consensus that we should stand behind the government and the Prime Minister, and in fact in the all-party meeting, every single political party have affirmed their support to the government and have urged the government to take appropriate steps, and they have said that whatever action Government of India takes, they will be solidly behind them.
Right.
Having said that, again politics has played out. Individually, few political leaders have made statements which are not only silly but also dangerous. We had one Congress MLA in Maharashtra, we had a minister in Karnataka, we had a TMC leader in West Bengal, and also a BJD MP in Odisha, who have actually doubted whether the terrorists actually asked for the religious identity of the victims before killing them. See, this kind of statements coming from MPs and MLAs and ministers, they play into the hands of countries like Pakistan. They play into the hands of foreign media, which is inimical towards India's interest.
Right.
They play into the hands of terrorist groups. Tomorrow, Pakistan can use the statement saying, no, see, or terrorist groups can use the statement saying, your own MP is saying that, it was not a religious targeted killing. Right, so Government of India is basically telling lies, or the victims are telling lies to defame Pakistan or to defame the terrorists.
Right.
So these leaders should make responsible statements and refrain from making irresponsible statements. But by and large, I think at least until now, there is a wider consensus amongst all political parties that what has happened is extremely reprehensible, and Pakistan is solidly behind it, and we as a nation should stand united and give a befitting reply to Pakistan. By and large, that's the narrative today.
Right. So, with this attack, a lot more new things have come out, including that Kashmiri localites, people of Kashmir, have come out in huge numbers to protest against this terror attack. People have been seeing it in different ways. Some people are calling it them actually, backing India after the abrogation of 370, that Kashmiris have now accepted India as home, and they have become integrated with the Indian soil. So some people are looking at it as that, and some are still a little more concerned about if they are just saying this to protect their businesses or because it was season and this affects their economy. So what does this actually mean for India, and how the statehood idea of Kashmir is coming out, with Kashmiris coming out to support that Indian government can take whatever action and we stand behind it?
It's heartening to note how ordinary Kashmiris have come out in large numbers, as you have said, Gunjan, that we are with India in this moment of grief. We are Indians, we are Kashmiris, but we are Indians, and this is not what represents Kashmir. We love peace, we love harmony, and they were our guests. And I must actually use this opportunity to salute the Chief Minister of Jammu and Kashmir, Omar Abdullah ji, who acted like a statesman yesterday in the assembly.
Right.
And in fact, I have tweeted about it. He took personal responsibility for the attack, saying, I could not protect my guests. And this is my home. They came to my home and I could not protect them. And I have no words to beg for forgiveness to the families of the victims. So these are very, I must say, soothing, and mature way of doing politics.
Right.
Kashmiris, by and large, have condemned the attack. You see how spontaneously markets were closed down. Kashmiris coming out in large number, shouting slogans against the terrorists, marching with candle lights.
Even giving shelter to people.
Giving shelter, free food, free rides.
Right.
So, I think, if there is a silver lining, this is it. And after Article 370 was abrogated, it took us a while. It took us a while to assure the ordinary Kashmiri that, it's in your own, I'm sorry, it's in your own interest. And 370 was actually, Article 370 was actually holding you behind.
Yeah.
Now that the Article 370 is gone, Government of India will support you economically, will ensure that the Kashmiri economy booms, will ensure that there are jobs, that will ensure that there are, equitable development in Kashmir. which was lacking before. Okay, so if you look at the per capita income, if you look at the number of tourists that have arrived, if you look at the number of startups, if you look at the FDI, if you look at the flight connectivity, in every respect, Kashmir is now either doing better than the rest of India or at least as good as the rest of India. Right. And it's only a matter of time before the people of Kashmir feel that they have in true sense integrated with the rest of India. So that's, I think, the silver lining, I must urge Government of India and rest of Indians to support these feelings of Kashmiris. There should not be any attack on Kashmiris in other parts of India. There should not be any sense of alienation that we should promote towards them, because terrorists are terrorists. Yes, an episode of this kind cannot happen with some local support. For sure, there were some local support. There were some people, local people who might have supported them, but we should isolate them. We should find them out and punish them. Right. Let us not paint all Kashmiris with the same brush by saying that you are Muslims and or supporting the whole. You supported this. You supported this. So I think we should refrain from that.
I think a lot of the attacks that have unfortunately befallen the Kashmiris that are residing outside their own state, outside their home state, has also come at the hands of how media has covered the attacks and how radicalized it has become due to the media coverage, right? So the media coverage, not just national, even international, has been problematic around this. Some, including the New York Times, quoting the people, the terrorists rather, as militants or gunmen. Something that even the White House officials corrected New York Times for. So I want to understand how much of this actually changes the narrative, and are we looking at a globe that is sort of being diplomatic when condemning this? And is the global media trying to subdue what has actually happened, because it has happened in India? For that matter, Mr. Jaishankar, our own foreign minister, he said something along the lines of Europe's fight is Europe's fight and India's fight is suddenly the globe's fight. So I want to understand, does this narrative shifting or does this specific usage of words defy the depth of a situation like this, or defy the actual problem that takes over our subcontinent?
Gunjan, see, what can you expect from a New York Times or from a BBC? Or from a Washington Post? Mostly they have been anti-India. Mostly they have peddled anti-India narratives, particularly BBC. In fact, yesterday also a BBC journalist was talking crap while covering this massacre. And largely they do so because they are unable to digest the fact that India is a rising power. The fact that there is peace and harmony, or there was peace and harmony in Kashmir for many years now. There was peaceful election in Jammu and Kashmir. So this is something which the Western media, by and large, unable to digest. Yes, there are many media houses which have done a very balanced and a mature reporting, but New York Times or Washington Post or BBC, they have their own agenda. In BBC, most of the reporters and most of the employees are from Pakistan and also from Mirpur, from a particular region in POK called Mirpur. If you look at the statistics, I think maybe a quarter of the employees of BBC are from that particular region. So obviously they are pro-Pakistan, right? And that reflects in their reporting and their broadcast. Why I have always advocated for an Indian global channel on the lines of Al Jazeera or on the lines of BBC, because we need to tell our own story. Unless we do so, the so-called global channels will tell India's story the way it suits them. Right? Time has come. We are no longer a poor state without enough resources. We are now a $4 trillion economy. We are the 5th largest economy in the world. We are a rising power. and we can certainly afford a global channel. And I think the Prime Minister has also often spoken about it. So let's not give much credence to NYT or BBC or Washington Post, and particularly in the era of social media, nothing is hidden, right? And even if they try to camouflage, and even if they try to peddle an anti-India narrative, people see through it. People see through it. See, in India we have about 200 million Muslims living by and large peacefully, and look at the way minorities are treated in Pakistan or in Bangladesh or in other countries, and it's not hidden to anyone, however much BBC might want to brush it off. So let's not give much credence to these global media houses. Many of them have their own agenda. Let's tell our own story.
Sir, coming down to more security level of things, I want to understand if India is looking at or even preparing for a two-front war, one side with Pakistan and the other side with China, because China and Pakistan are very integrated as we know it. So is there a possibility of a two-front war at all? Will China engage in full-blown war if it came to that? And is India equipped enough to actually fall out for this war on two different fronts, on terrains that are actually have proven very, tricky in the past as well?
Yeah, no, there is certainly a distinct possibility of a two-front war. It's a possibility for sure. In fact, the Indian, I have raised this issue many a times in the past, both in the parliament and outside the parliament when I engage with the strategic community. And it's not that we are unaware of this or we are unprepared for this. So we have played out multiple scenarios, what will happen in case of a two-front war.
Right.
And every time I've been told that we are adequately prepared for this. We are certainly aware of this possibility, and India is adequately prepared for it.
Right.
Now, honestly, on the Western front, with Pakistan, there is not much. I mean, except for the terrain in Kashmir,
right.
Where you will have the terrorists and the infiltrators, because that's the path Pakistan will take. Otherwise, there is no way Pakistan can overwhelm India in a conventional war or in any other kind of conflict. China, as you know, is trying to encircle India through its string of pearls strategy. So it's using Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Maldives, Nepal to some extent, and then of course Pakistan to encircle India, right? Again, that is something which is very much under consideration of our defense establishment. I think that in the Indian Ocean, we have dominance. Okay, our naval strength is such that we can definitely counter China to a large extent, particularly in the Sunda Strait and in the Strait of Malacca, where 60% of the global trade of China flows. So we are right at the mouth of Strait of Malacca, and now we have a naval command in the Andamans. So China is very, very smart. They also understand their limitations, and so this is why you will see that they are very cunning. They follow this salami approach.
Right.
So
could you maybe elaborate on that a little? What is the salami approach?
The salami approach is the way China operates. What they will do is they will go 2 miles into Indian territory, or for that matter into the territory of any other country, and then they will when there is a conflict or there is a war-like situation, then they will say, okay, let's negotiate. Okay, we are willing to, this was anyway our land, but we are willing to go back 1 kilometer. So we are actually giving concession.
Yeah.
But at the end, we have lost 1 kilometer.
1 kilometer
right?
of
land. So that's the way they operate. And then they do it slowly over a period. They don't just go 100 miles or don't just go into any nation. In fact, if you see, except for the 1962 war and then some other major conflicts over the years, they have systematically and slowly encroached on Indian territory. That is the salami tactic.
Isn't that also something that they've done in Arunachal Pradesh? They have set up an entire small village inside our territory.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Which is sitting there.
Not one. So they have set up these border villages, and even not only in Arunachal, even in Ladakh, you know.
Right.
So for instance, so there was a time when we were able to patrol up to finger 8, right? Then because it's a the border is not demarcated, undemarcated border, then suddenly they will come, they'll put up a tent near finger 4, and then they will say that okay, this has always been our land for centuries, for ages.
Right.
And then they will when it escalates, they will call for a
Truce.
A truce, and then negotiation, and then so this is how we have lost a large parcel of land both in the Ladakh region and also in Arunachal, less so in Arunachal, I must say. So coming back to the two-front war, yes, I think we are adequately prepared for it, but see, the future wars will not be fought on the ground. It will be largely tech-driven. So my fear is that China is miles ahead of us when it comes to AI-enabled warfare. We are catching up, but it will take us a while. So that's where I think China has an advantage over India. I think in a conventional war, this is not 1962. And China has learnt it the hard way in Galwan, in Doklam. And in fact, they were shocked to see India's response. They never anticipated this kind of response from India. So this is a new India. But in case of a tech-enabled warfare, particularly using AI, I think we have to ramp up our capabilities faster. That's what my fear is, not, I think, a two-front war.
So talking about China expanding towards India's neighbors and encircling India, it is also now establishing itself very strongly in Bangladesh for that matter. And Bangladesh's new interim government under Muhammad Yunus has also sort of tilted towards or bent towards Chinese capabilities in China's aggression for that matter, which it has been showing towards India. Bangladesh and India's relationship have become strained anyway, given the new interim government and Sheikh Hasina refuging in India. So I want to understand that how is that going to affect India? Because Yunus has also noted that Bangladesh is the only maritime way that China can reach northeast, which is a very contentious region in today's time, with China and India being at the helm of both sides of it. So I want to understand, one, Bangladesh is creating this narrative that, China and Arunachal Pradesh is almost a thing and that Bangladesh is supporting it. So one, that narrative, and second, does this make it trickier for India to defend itself in its own homeland?
It certainly does, because the government in Bangladesh is stridently anti-Indian, anti-India, as you have rightly pointed out. After the fall of the Awami League government there, the Bangladesh establishment is now teaming with Islamist forces, anti-India forces, and they have made common cause with the Chinese. In fact, Yunus was in Beijing a few weeks ago, where he made that stupid statement. I think he has no understanding of geopolitics or world affairs. And in fact, India gave a befitting reply by, making Bangladeshi goods out of bounds from the northeast. So I think there is enough unrest and trouble inside Bangladesh. China is certainly, even before this government came into being, China had presence in Bangladesh. Right now, of course, they will expedite their and increase their presence. They will augment it. So we have to be very watchful.
Right.
We have to be very watchful, because this is typical Chinese behavior: encircle India through its string of pearls strategy.
String of pearls, yes.
And the Bangladesh government suits Chinese nefarious designs, right? This is precisely what they did in Sri Lanka when they took over the Hambantota port. This is precisely what they tried to do in Maldives when President Moizu took over. Thankfully, good sense has prevailed with the government there, and after the massive backlash there,
that they faced,
and now they have actually started making positive statements towards India. So, and one more dangerous trend is the growing proximity between Bangladesh and Pakistan. So, my fear is this troika, China, Pakistan, Bangladesh. This troika is an extremely, this evil, axis of this evil axis triangle. This is certainly going to be worrisome for India. So, we have to be very, cognizant of this, particularly because near the chicken's neck, the Siliguri corridor,
yes.
you have Bangladesh land where Ulfa is active, and Ulfa cadre they hide there, and China would definitely want to leverage this situation by creating trouble in that Siliguri corridor, because that's the only gateway to Northeast. So I think India has to India has to take a very cautious approach in its dealings with Bangladesh. I think Bangladesh has been told in no uncertain terms that it should not create any situation which is going to be inimical towards India's interest. And as a sovereign nation, they have every right to deal with China or Pakistan or whoever they want to, but it's in their own interest that they don't do anything which is stupid. Today, see, Bangladesh was the largest exporter of textile products in the world. They had a booming textile industry which is at the verge of collapse now because of the situation, the civil unrest and situation in Bangladesh, which is to India's interest. Many of them have now outsourced to India. So Bangladesh should understand that, but unfortunately the fanatical elements have taken over the government there and the nation there. So they are trying to collude with Pakistan, and also the government is also trying to get China to help them. That is, I think, very worrisome.
So, since China's expansion in other nations, including Bangladesh, is such a high concern for us and for the entire globe for that matter, because that is how China's expansionism works. It goes into a nation, it basically makes colonies, how British did, right? So they go in, even with Xinjiang, they went into Xinjiang region, started with trade. Tibet. So, which is what I was coming to. They have now, China has now started referring to Tibet as not Tibet, but its Chinese name. So, what does this mean for Tibet? Does it mean that it is now going to be permanently a Chinese territory? Is it going to be a permanent colony, how Hong Kong has become now, or is on the verge of becoming, for that matter? It hasn't become that yet. Or how Xinjiang is now a Chinese colony and it is now regarded as a permanent member of China or a permanent part of China. It includes that in its boundary. It also includes Tibet in its boundary. But the geopolitical stance still sort of recognizes that strip as Tibet and not a part of China. So I want to understand, does this mean that India will soon be sharing a border with China? Because Tibet will cease to exist as we know it.
You are right when you say that Tibet was never part of China and is not part of China. Unfortunately, China has been able to convince the world that Tibet is part of China, is an integral part of China, and every country has bought this argument, which is so unfortunate. Until 1954, Tibet was shown as a separate nation in Indian maps. Okay, we had a consulate in Lhasa, we had a trade office in Lhasa, in Sigatse and in Lhasa. A series of blunders we committed from 1949 until 1962. Otherwise, there is not an inch of border between India and China. We share the border with Tibet. Right. But China just walked into Tibet in the 1950s, and the whole world was silent,
Right.
including US, UK, and India. You know, the three countries which were directly dealing with this issue. The only basis of deciding the Tibet issue should be the Simla Agreement of 1917, okay, which was signed between British India and Tibet, right? So, and as the successor to British India, that should be the basis of the Tibet issue, the Tibet question. But unfortunately, our Prime Minister, former Prime Minister Nehru, Pandit Nehru, got so enamored with the Chinese, sweet talk, Hindi chini bye bye and all those crap, that he didn't realize that that he didn't realize that China is not a friend to be trusted, right? They walked into Ladakh in Aksai Chin, and we were completely clueless.
Right.
In fact, when the Indian ambassador told Mr. Zhao Enlai in Beijing that Aksai Chin is our territory, the answer he gave was that we have been building this highway, the Karakoram highway, since for the last 3 years. Where were you? We didn't even see a single Indian post.
Right.
So and Pandit Nehru in Parliament said that not a single blade of grass grows in that barren land. So what are we going to do with that piece of land? So this is the kind of blunder we have committed. My heart really goes out to my Tibetan brothers and sisters. The kind of atrocities that's going on, the kind of cultural genocide that's happening. 1 million Tibetan kids are in boarding schools, and they can't speak their language, they can't practice their religion, they cannot display their Tibetan identity. And after they come out of those so-called boarding schools, which are really concentration camps, they start detesting their own religion. So they start detesting their Tibetan identity.
They are essentially not Tibetan anymore.
They are not Tibetan anymore. And China, the kind of surveillance that's going on in Tibet and also in Xinjiang is so sad. Thousands or tens of thousands of monasteries have been destroyed. Tens of thousands of monks have been killed. Panchen Lama, who was kidnapped by China in 1995, we do not know about his whereabouts, whether he's alive, whether he's dead. A puppet Panchen Lama has been imposed on the Tibetans. So I really do not know what the future for Tibet is, but I'm a very hopeful and optimistic person, and I always tell my Tibetan friends that don't lose hope. It took us 200 years to
get rid of British,
to get rid of the British, to gain independence from the colonial masters, and your struggle is only 65 years old, okay, and maybe 70 years old. So it's a long struggle. Maybe you will not see the independence of Tibet. Maybe your grandchildren will not see the independence of Tibet, but certainly Tibet will be independent one day. That's the way I give them hope.
So China has also been mixing the Tibet issue with the religion and politics, for that matter, including talking about who the next Dalai Lama is going to be. They do not want the Dalai Lama to come through its original ways, how he has been how Dalai Lamas have been getting to power. How they've been reincarnated or how they've been chosen.
Yes.
China now wants somebody that can be their puppet, that can be at their back and call whenever they want it. So how does that affect the Tibetan cause? Because Dalai Lama does harbor a lot of energy, a lot of politics, and a lot of people. The public sentiment is driven by Dalai Lama, right? So how does China plan to change this through the selection of Dalai Lama, for that matter? And secondly, how has India been catering to the Tibetan cause, and how has India been helping the Tibetan cause in past few years, given that the Tibetan government in exile, most of it resides in India?
Yeah. Well, all of it resides in India.
Yeah.
Let me touch upon the reincarnation issue. It's a very important issue. See, His Holiness is close to 90 years old. On 6th of July this year, he will be 90.
90, yes.
Eventually he will leave his mortal body, right? And the institution of Dalai Lama is so powerful in the Tibetan whole ecosystem, and His Holiness this is 14th Dalai Lama, has such a massive sway over the Tibetan people, both inside Tibet and outside Tibet. Though it's illegal inside Tibet, inside Tibet to have a photo or a statue of His Holiness,
Dalai
or
Lama,
to pray to him or to revere him. But secretly, most Tibetans have it in their home. So China wants to control the reincarnation. Okay, there is a long-standing tradition as to how the Dalai Lama is chosen. Okay, there is a elaborate process. Okay, there is an elaborate process, and it's so ironical that China, which is a communist country, which does not believe in religion, wants to exercise control over the religious process. Okay, who gives China the right to do so? We have to stand together as a world community to tell China in no uncertain terms that please keep out of it. Please keep out of it, and because they want to finish the Tibetan movement once and for all by choosing the next puppet Lama. Okay, they will impose it, and they will tell that this is the new Dalai Lama, the 15th Dalai Lama.
And you follow him, and he follows China.
And he will follow China's diktat. This is something which is very, very sensitive and critical for the future of Tibet. His Holiness has said, and as late as last month, he said that the next Dalai Lama most likely will be born in free world. So I think it was a signal. He said outside Tibet and outside China. Sorry, what he said was the next Dalai Lama will be born in free world, and most likely outside Tibet and outside China. So he did two things by saying that. One is that he signaled to his followers and to people across the globe that the next Dalai Lama will be born probably in Mongolia or India or some other parts of the world. So China will not be able to kidnap that person and kill him or whatever. Number one. Number two, by saying Tibet and China, he signaled that these are two different countries, right? So though he has since 1988 accepted that Tibet is part of China, and he adheres to the one China policy, again out of compulsion, again out of the need for having his people safe and secure inside Tibet, he has accepted this. But everyone knows. Every Tibetan knows, no Tibetan will ever accept that Tibet is part of China. So by using Tibet and China separately, he has signaled to his followers and to everyone that, yes, Tibet is not part of China. So this is, I think, a brilliant masterstroke by His Holiness. Now India will be the country which will be the most affected by these developments. So I hope that our government has a plan as to how to handle this issue, and working with His Holiness, working with the government in exile. I think we should certainly ensure that the next Dalai Lama is someone who is chosen as per the Tibetan traditions, and then we should recognize him, and as soon as possible, and also get the world community to recognize him, and basically isolate China. Coming back to the second query about India's support to the Tibetans. We have a large Tibetan diaspora in India, close to 1 lakh, maybe between 80,000 to 1 lakh in India, in various settlement camps across states. We have, of course, the Tibetan government in exile, the CTA, Central Tibetan Administration in Dharamsala, and then we have 5 camps in Karnataka, 1 in Chhattisgarh, 1 in Odisha, camps in almost all the Himalayan states. I must actually compliment Pandit Nehru that he gave asylum to His Holiness when he escaped the CCP, in 1959. I mean, one can imagine the kind of pressure China would have exerted on India and Pandit Nehru not to give asylum to His Holiness and his followers. But compliments to him that we didn't buckle under pressure. And we have allowed the Tibetans not only to live here as our guests, but also allowed them to practice their religion, their tradition. You know, this is a 1,000-year-old tradition, Buddhist tradition, and in fact, this tradition has gone from India. It's the
Yes.
Nalanda school
was
of
born
Buddhism.
here.
Nalanda
Yeah.
school of Buddhism that has gone to Tibet, and His Holiness keeps saying that, you know, India is our guru, we are its chela,
Right.
and India has been very supportive of the Tibetan cause. I wish we did more. There's a lot more that we can do in terms of support, financial support, in terms of other kinds of support, global mobilization. But I can understand that given the China factor, we are also slightly diffident.
Right.
That we have a limitation. But as a strong supporter of Tibetan cause, as a former convener of the All-Party Parliamentary Forum on Tibet, as a follower of His Holiness, I feel and hope that my country will do much more for the cause.
So this sounds like a very strategic relationship that India holds over Tibet with China, that it is supporting the cause but also not going all out to give it the security backing that it may need to actually, you know, weaponize its cause for that matter.
See, at this point, it's not really possible to weaponize because it would have been possible in the 50s when there was a guerrilla movement in Tibet, when they were fighting the CCP. You know, you had a small Tibetan army and then, of course, the guerrillas of the Tibetan youth who were fighting the CCP. That was the time when we could have possibly helped the Tibetans to fight the Chinese, the mighty Chinese. Now it's a state. Tibet is a nation which is completely invaded and occupied by China. It's like a surveillance state. You have CCTVs everywhere.
Right.
You know, Tibetans cannot arm themselves. Okay, they are not allowed to arm themselves. They are basically people who are fighting to earn their daily bread. You know, so there's no way they can think beyond that daily existence. I was in Tibet in 2008 and I witnessed firsthand the scenario there, and situation has actually gone much worse since then. 2009, I was there in 2009, and situation has become much worse since then. You know, I was told by one of my Tibetan friends living abroad that, you know, like they have converted Lhasa into a huge brothel. You know, Tibetan girls are forced into prostitution. Han Chinese are forced into Tibetan homes. Every Tibetan family has to host a Han Chinese man in their home. Imagine, you know, you are forced to have a man in your own household, staying with you 24/7. I mean, just I can't even imagine, you know, what would be going on. So these are the kind of atrocities going on in Tibet. So at this point, I don't think the Tibetans themselves are in a position to fight the mighty Chinese. And given the massive military strength and economic strength that China has, it may not be possible also to free Tibet from the clutches of China at this point of time. But Gunjan, you know, no empire has lasted forever. Right. Look at the Roman Empire. They used to say every road leads to Rome. Where is the Roman Empire today? Look at the British Empire. They used to say the sun never sets in the British Empire. Look at the empire, where is it today? So even the evil Chinese Empire, you know, which has colonized Tibet, which has colonized Xinjiang, will at some point in the future will go the Roman way or the British way.
So, but talking about the empires, I also want to ask this question for my own sake and for my audience sake, that British Empire, they expanded beyond their own borders, that to the countries that were not really touching its borders either. So it was comparatively more of a possibility, it was more feasible to push them out of the country that they were not native to. Right. Now China has expanded to smaller areas, smaller and bigger areas that touch its boundaries, that even if you push it back, it can go home, regroup and come back. So it is going to be much more difficult than pushing out the British out of our own houses.
Of course, of course. But as I said, future wars will not be fought on the ground. It will be more tech-driven. It will be more fought in the outer space. So we don't know what the future is, what the future lies, right, or what the future holds. But it's my firm belief that China has occupied Tibet for decades now, but it has not been able to win the hearts and minds of the people of Tibet. Right? Not a single Tibetan will tell you that he or she is a Chinese, right? So I'm firmly of the view that that Tibet will be independent at some point, maybe 100 years later, maybe 200 years later. Yes, there will not be a parallel to the British Empire, but even the British Empire was such a massive empire. Even of course the colonies were scattered all over the world, but Great Britain had complete sway and control over these colonies, right? But the geopolitics and the developments of the time forced it to vacate its colonies, right? So this will happen.
So talking about boundary and non-boundary expansion, China has also now China finds itself in a conundrum where US, being one of its biggest trade partners, is now backed off or is levying excessive tariffs on it given Trump's policies towards China, which he made it very clear before he got elected that I am going to cut off China like nobody ever has. Right. So now China finds itself in a position where it is trying to fight for its own trade while trying to bring down the US economy. However, in this situation, the question that interests me the most is that how can India benefit from this? India also has low labor costs. Right. What is it that India can do in a, the biggest internal and external obstacles that India can actually come over and can actually go around in some forms to get to a point where it can use this rift between US and China and actually turn it in its own favor?
Yeah, it's actually a very good moment for India in the sense that the Trump administration is in a way friendly towards India. Certainly much more friendlier than compared to the relations with China. Now, in this tariff war between China and the US, India is certainly going to gain, provided we play our cards well. Even after COVID, when countries were trying to diversify the supply chain from China, there was a window of opportunity. China plus one strategy. Most companies were talking about the China plus one strategy. Most countries were talking about the China plus one strategy. So basically, if not completely decouple from China, at least have one leg in any other country. But guess who gained from this strategy? Not India, Vietnam, right? Unfortunately, we were unable to tap into this window of opportunity because of our lousy infrastructure, because of red tapeism, because for whatever reason we were unprepared. Now this opportunity has come again. Okay, so see, our infrastructure is now thankfully like really scaling up. We may not be at par with China at this point, but look at our roads, you look at our railways, our ports, our power infrastructure. We are really doing a good job. I'm not so sure about the red tapeism, though Prime Minister Modi has done a great deal to minimize it, and in fact his slogan after he took over in 2014 was minimum government, maximum governance. I would really want to see more of this red tapeism coming down. That will make our economy, our industry more competitive, and in fact attract more foreign investment and more companies to look at India as an alternative from China. Because the cost of doing business with China will certainly go up with these added tariffs. So this is a great opportunity for India, provided we play our cards well. I must admit here that under Prime Minister Modi's leadership, we are doing a fantastic job. This is why we are the fastest growing economy today. At 6.5, it's no joke. And if we continue to grow at this rate, then I think by 2047 we should be at least a $25 trillion economy, right. Anywhere between 20 to 25. So I think we are on the right path. We are on the right path. We need to just ensure that all the dots are connected: infrastructure, policies, enabling policies, supporting more startups, ensuring that there is less of regulatory compliance headache for the industry. So if we connect all these dots, I think we will certainly gain from this the tariff war that we see today.
So, you mentioned decoupling from China. Most of the efforts towards decoupling from China, from India at least, have been focused on economic decoupling, right? So, there are other segments to it as well. There is media narrative, there's tech, there's cultural decoupling. So, what are these standards that India is following in decoupling, and is India actually looking at other segments and not just economic decoupling? Is it trying to separate the media narrative, or is it trying to bypass the tech giant that China has now become? And how does all of this fit into this one frame of decoupling?
Yeah, actually I meant when I said decoupling, I meant foreign companies. Foreign companies wanted to decouple from China, or at least wanted to mitigate their presence in China and have some kind of presence in other countries also. Okay, so basically to hedge their risks. Now coming back to this culture, media influence that China has in India, it's actually very, very concerning. In fact, there was a report which came out a few years ago, and I strongly urge the audience to go through this report. It basically talks of China's influence in Indian media, in Indian academia, in Indian civil society, in Bollywood. It's mind-boggling. I forget, there was a scene in the movie, I forget the name of the movie, where you had Free Tibet. In one of the scenes in the movie, there was Free Tibet banner visible, and China forced the director and the producer to remove that. Can you imagine China forcing an Indian director and producer to remove that scene? Academia, I don't want to name the universities, but we have many universities in our country today where many of the professors and scholars are like pro-China and anti-India. They are not tired of peddling the Chinese narrative to the extent of acting against India's interest. You have civil society which is receiving donation from China and also doing China's narrative war, supporting them in the narrative war. Media, some media houses are the worst culprits. China is so good at cultivating pro-China media and to tell its narrative, particularly when it comes to Tibet, that it actually worries me a lot. You have many journalists writing pro-China articles in newspaper. Indian Express used to bring out this multi-page ad in favor of China. Just I think a few months ago. Every other day you would see these huge ads praising China, advertorial. Okay, so this is something which I think is worrisome. The kind of influence they have. They have something called the Confucius Institutes, which is supposedly the center for learning Mandarin, but they use these centers to sell a pro-China narrative, to tell a pro-China story, and influence young minds, influence Indian academia, media, civil society, and now the DeepSeek, the Chinese AI
generator.
Generative model. This is again, in my view, a Chinese tool to peddle its narrative. Over a period of time, you see because this is going to be used as an information warfare or information warfare tool by China to spread lies, to spread propaganda.
So this also makes us question that how integrated Chinese ideology or Chinese propaganda or narrative is in our society. But it also makes me question that how was China able to influence such a huge part of our Indian culture or such a huge part of our Indian society for that matter without actually facing any problems for that matter. Not that I've heard of, not that I've read of, not that I've been told of.
Right.
China has not really been persecuted for any of these interferences that it has been, bringing about in our own nation.
See, they do it in a very subtle way. Okay. For instance, they will fund a group of journalists to travel to China, and they will tell you, see how great China is, how massive development China has witnessed. So basically, again, they will provide scholarships to a bunch of Indian students to go and study in China, and try to brainwash them. So it's not particularly illegal, but the way they operate is certainly which is against India's interest. I feel that we should not allow the Confucius Institutes to operate in India. I don't see any reason why we should they should be in India. In fact, we should actually partner with Taiwan. Taiwan has an equivalent called TECC, okay, where they also provide Mandarin language training. There are 24 TECCs in India. We should, in fact, request Taiwan to set up more institutes. Taiwan is a friend of India. Taiwan is a proud democracy, just like India is. Taiwan has always, supported us, whether it's during COVID times or otherwise. So it's in our interest that we should get closer to Taiwan, and the academics or the media personnel or Indian politicians also. We had a party in India which openly supported China during the 1962 war, the Communist Party of India. They openly supported China. So we should name them and shame them publicly. We should call them out. We should actually shame them that, see, this is a politician, or this is a journalist, or this is a professor who is supporting China. Okay, nothing wrong in praising China for something good they have done. It's a, the China story is a miracle. It's a great story. Yes, we should learn from them. We should tell the story. There's nothing. I'm not saying that we should not praise China at all, but doing so while acting against India's interest is something which cannot be pardoned or accepted.
So, India has also been gaining from China a lot, which has been a two-way thing, that China has also gained trade out of India and other things amongst culture and strategic ties. I want to understand that after India banned TikTok and various other Chinese goods and apps, the trade with China was brought down by quite a lot. But does India still gain from its strategic ties or diplomatic ties or trade ties for that matter with China?
Actually, after the Galwan conflict, India banned TikTok and a few dozen Chinese apps, and also there was a movement within the country to boycott Chinese goods. Okay. It did help to some extent, but actually the trade gap, the trade deficit between India and China didn't go down. Today we have a 100 billion deficit with China, which means that we are importing 100 billion worth of goods and services more from China than we are exporting to them.
Right.
100 billion.
100 billion.
So this is our money going to China. 100 billion. So because somewhere we want cheap goods. People are just buying more and more Chinese because it comes cheap. It comes cheaper.
But labor is cheap in India as well. Why not make it here?
Because we don't have a massive manufacturing ecosystem.
Right.
China, our manufacturing base is like really minuscule compared to Chinese manufacturing. Okay. See, today you can buy, a mug for a Chinese-made mug for 50 rupees. Just imagine. An equivalent mug made in Germany will cost you 500 rupees. So people, by and large, are looking to buy cheaper goods. Most of it comes from China. So I think the way we can tackle it is twofold. One is by strengthening our manufacturing base here. So we produce more, whether it's solar panels, or whether it's EV vehicle batteries, or whether it's mobile phones, or textiles or whatever. And number two is to tell that, consciously tell that, no, I'm not going to buy from China, because China acts against India's interest. China is our enemy. Okay, it's killing our soldiers. It's if we buy Chinese, then we are actually strengthening the Chinese economy, and China will use that money to harm India. So that mindset, if we can, get people to understand this, then I think that trade deficit will probably come down to a large extent. But the fundamental solution is to strengthen our own manufacturing base.
Right. So China has been increasing its global influence, be it by soft politics, be it by soft powers, or be it by force, how it's been doing in its own expansionism idea. So under all of these things, what can India do to sort of subdue this expansionist idea, or subdue this to a point where it actually is equally beneficial for India, if not more, especially through forums like IPAC?
Right. See, IPAC, let me give you the genesis of IPAC. IPAC is an inter-parliamentary forum. It stands for Inter-Parliamentary
Alliance
on China. So a bunch of legislators from several countries, all democracies, we got together, and then we said, what are our values? Our values are democracy. Our values are human rights. Our values are respect for law, okay, respect for the rule of law, for the international order. And what is China's value or values? What are China's values? China's values are like oppression, repression, expansionism, belligerent behavior towards others. So this cannot be the norm in a civilized society, okay, or in 21st century. China is behaving like a medieval power, okay, grabbing land and claiming an entire sea as its own. So we decided to form this alliance, to come together as a group, okay, and when I'm a member of the IPAC, I'm basically not speaking on my own behalf, but I'm speaking on behalf of my countrymen. Of course, I'm not the official spokesperson of Government of India or even my own political party, but I carry the values of India, right? So when we have an MP from Sweden or from Netherlands or from US or from Canada or from Australia, they bring their national values. And all of us meet regularly. We get together regularly, whether online or offline, and call out China for its cultural genocide in Tibet, in Xinjiang, or its human rights abuses in Hong Kong, or whether it's belligerent activity in the Taiwan Strait. So all of this, or its trade practices. So these are issues which are unacceptable, okay, and we try to bring the global attention, because people and oftentimes countries, because of their own economic interest, they don't want to confront China. They don't want to call out China's evil behavior. Right. So it is necessary for countries, for democratic forces to be united and to speak in one voice. Right. So and also to urge our national government. Okay. We also want to force our own government that be more assertive while dealing with China. Okay, don't be diffident. Don't allow yourself or the country to be blackmailed by China, or to be shown aggressive behavior by China, because that is typical Chinese template. That's how they operate. Like a typical school bully. The only way to stand up to a bully is to say, hey, hold on, I'm no longer going to accept your bulliness anymore. And that's when China will back up. Okay. So for a long time, China has been able to fool the world by selling its narrative of peaceful rise. It kept on saying that we we are a developing country, peaceful rise. But they were biding their time. They were hiding their strength. And before the world realized this, they started showing their true color. You know, aggression, grabbing land, threatening, intimidating nations. So this is how China behaves. So we have to give a collaborative fight, and both intellectually. Of course, we are not soldiers, or I mean, I'm not the Defense Minister of India, or the other IPAC members are not ministers in their countries. So we are parliamentarians. So we want to use our role as parliamentarians to highlight these issues in our national parliaments, to speak in one voice across the globe. And when MPs speak, media also takes note of it.
Of course.
Right? So that's also another advantage that we have when we meet, let's say, in London or in Rome or in Washington. Then you know that global media takes note of it. Okay, 25 MPs from like 20 different countries got together, and this is what they have to say. So that makes news. So these are our objectives, and I must say we have been quite successful at our objectives.
Well, I hope that this goes on forward and China actually has a power that is competing against it. This, however, does bring us to the end of our conversation today. We spoke about China, we spoke about Chinese expansionism, we spoke about India, we spoke about Pakistan, and we also spoke about our Kashmir. These topics are a huge, huge, huge conversation that continues to go on every day. We have a long way to go, but with this conversation today, we have come a long way as well. This is the Asian Chronicle, and you're watching On Record with TAC. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. It was a real pleasure to interact with you.
Thank you so much, sir.